So the thing that made it click for me and was like, this is it, this is my passion, this is what I want to do, I think it is right, it's just the speed. Almost the adrenaline that you got from it. A lot of people love going on roller coasters because they love the speed and the adrenaline, and I think racing is quite a similar sort of buzz to that, but you know, we get to do it a lot more often. It doesn't just last 60 seconds and it's over. Races can be 24 hours, so you just get to have that thrill and that buzz for a lot longer time. The primary goal is to make sure you survive the first lap, make sure you get around.
It's the 20 best GT drivers in the world going out and competing for pole position.
Good on, mate, they're like me, so you're all right?
You're fighting with one hand behind your back and you can't go to battle.
Oh mate, this is horrible.
And at that moment in time, that's kind of when you know that it's going to be hard to fight and really give it your all.
We need another one.
Yeah. One more, please.
You sure?
Yep. Thank you.
Let's go. I'm Ben Barnicoat, I'm 24 years old, I'm from Chesterfield in the United Kingdom, and I'm a McLaren customer racing factory driver. I got into racing at the age of 8 years old. I just so happened to be on a family holiday in Cornwall and just went to an arrive and drive karting track like many of us do. From that moment I just fell in love with driving go-karts, and me and my mum and dad went down to that track, into the shop, bought my first go-kart, and yeah, it just went from there, progressed through the ranks of British karting, into European karting, yeah, through into cars. So it's an incredible journey and I had very fond memories. For it to now be my job, yeah, that's quite a pinch yourself sort of thing, because we're so lucky to be able to do what we do and do it for a brand like McLaren, one of the most famous motorsport brands in the world. Is just truly incredible, and yeah, I can't really have ever imagined that had to happen.
So you want me to look at you, not the...
You'll be talking to me.
Yeah. I'm Ian Morgan, I'm Director of Motorsport for McLaren Automotive, and my role covers every aspect of our GT race car programs. In regard to Ben, I've worked with him since he first came across from single-seaters into GT racing, from very early days when he was a junior, and he's now developed into, you know, a very big asset for us. He's a very strong race driver, the ability to really pull a lap time out when we need it and getting the car through to the end of the race in the best possible shape. He's very good at knowing what he needs from the car, and we like to be challenged. He's constantly testing, he's constantly out with our development guys working on finding, you know, a few hundreds, a few thousandths here and there, and that's an attribute in any driver that you really need to have to move and succeed in this level.
So for the setup of the car for the Spa 24 hours, that already started 5 weeks before the race. We were at Spa for a 2-day test. When we were there, to be honest, we struggled a little bit and we were damaging it a little bit too much in Eau Rouge. Eau Rouge is corner where you come out of turn 1. The source downhill all the way. And when you're in the bottom, then begins to rise and the bottom of the car compresses a lot. There's a lot of damage to the underside. So the SNETTERTON test that we did was all about the focus of preparing the car for that one corner to make sure it would go the distance and last 24 hours.
Braking performance doesn't feel amazing.
Yeah, they're all great.
I know.
Yeah.
On entry, on braking, and then when you come off the brake, you get understeer.
Okay. So if I made the rear better on the brake, and then you're able to carry the brake further to the apex, that would improve both, I think.
So basically, just testing a few different items like ride heights, things like that. Because the difficult thing about racing at Spa is having Eau Rouge. We have to set 90% of the car up for that one corner. The more we raise the car, the harder it is to drive, basically, because there's more air under it, we get less aero and all the other things. So basically try and see how low we can get away with What makes it really tough for us is a lot of people think, oh, it's an endurance race, so you need to be easy on the car and you need to take your time. But there are guys out there who don't take it easy, and they're not easy on their cars, and they push as if it's a sprint race for the whole 24 hours. So it really means if we're not doing the same, and those guys make it to the end, they're going to win the race. So it's actually mentally so hard for us, because although people look at endurance racing as being a bit more steady, for us as drivers it is actually the same as being in a half-an-hour sprint race, because there will be guys that race like that, so we have to race with them.
Like now, like I say, when I get off the brake, it all feels alright. I'm like, oh, okay, been quarter bounce, okay, and I get on the power, and sometimes it'll do one thing and sometimes it'll do another, and I think it's just because the tyres are old and...
The tyres are like 150k old,
Yeah.
so
Oh, we'll see.
I'm not too worried about that exit sort of
Yeah.
an end of the car giving up.
Yeah.
More worried about the entry. Would you be happy to start FP1 here, or we need to keep working?
No, I need to keep working.
Keep working.
Yeah.
We all did. You know, we did a very good job at SNETTERTON. Our engineer Nathan nailed it. He worked really hard before that test to go, I think this is where we're going to need to be. To be successful in racing, you have to be in tune and at one with your engineer. I've got to trust him absolutely, and he's got to trust me. So when he has an idea and he says, I think this is going to work, you know, I back him and I know that it's going to probably work, and if it doesn't, we're in it together, we're all learning. But throughout the day we progressed a lot, and we ended the SNETTERTON test in a very happy place, and we thought that we were going to roll out at Spa, and that would be the, you know, the magic setup.
Both names, already got one. I'm Rob Bell, and I'm a McLaren factory driver. It's really, really important that a driver is mentally and physically fit to be able to do any racing, but especially endurance racing that we do. And it really helps if you're in a stressful situation but you're fit, you can just keep the heart rate down and make better decisions, and that's absolutely critical to being successful at the highest level. Most racing drivers use now and find really helpful on the build up to any race is preparation on the simulator. And what it does is you can go, preferably the day before you travel to the race, get your mind focused, get some repetition, and it sort of gives you a little bit of muscle memory to just start on the right footing. So you get there, you're sharp, you know what's coming, you know what's in store, and it really just gives you maybe an advantage to someone who hasn't used the sim beforehand. So we find that really, really helpful.
The brake bias is a lot more rearward than I had it this morning. I don't know if it was that or not, but I was just like... This morning I felt like I could hold the brake all the way to the corner, and then I definitely couldn't.
That's weird. I had the opposite. Yeah, that's the first time I've been able to brake all the way in, and it gripped, and I thought traction was much better.
I think traction was a bit better, but yeah, we all have slightly different styles. For example, me and Ollie both are left foot brakers. Rob's a little bit more old school and brakes with his right foot. You know, before you even turn into a corner, just the way you lift off the throttle and press the brake pedal, we're already having slightly different things happen with the car. It was good, but me personally, and also Rob and Ollie, thought there was a little bit more there to be had, because, you know, the car was very stiff. To stop the car from basically compressing and hitting the bottom of the car in the bottom of a rouge, but we felt the other 17 corners of the lap could be a little bit better. It's just corner entry, like I feel like I've definitely gained more grip mid-corner and better traction. Just on that, yeah, it's just that this morning I felt really happy to like brake late, hold the brake all the way to the apex, whereas now I'm like, it's a fair bit before I got to the apex. When I start loading the front, it's almost like it's just too much on the like outside front, and it picks the inside rear up, and then you start having a bit of rear lock in.
And that's what I have to be hesitant, because we haven't run that package. We've got two packages that we have run that we know, or we could go with something unknown into the biggest quality of the year. It's a bit.
We took a little bit of a almost a gamble for qualifying with the setup. We went into an area that was unknown, something that we haven't ran before.
When you look at the lap time only, like if I'm ignoring what you guys are saying, this spring package is better.
You know, I leave him to predominantly set up the car because that's what he does, what he's good at. But, you know, I was driving the car, I had a feeling that this setup change would work. It was just a difficult call because we were already in quite a good place, but I wanted to take us from a good place to a great place.
But if I had that little bit more on entry, I'd find 210s, no problem. Not a problem. And then we're like well in the mix. Whereas at the minute, I feel like I'm like that and we're just there. And if you give me that little bit more, like bang, we're there. Well, we're going to be on it.
So qualifying was it was a bit of a roller coaster for us in particular.
So if we have the battery charger out, the door down, we'll go out and join our 45 degrees nose out.
The first session there was a crash when Rob was in the car. Ended up with quite a big delay, so that somewhat compromised his run. And you know, he still did a good job, got a lap time in the car and put us on the board. We then moved on to Ollie. Ollie was doing a good job, having a pretty plain sailing run, but ran into a small technical issue on his last lap.
See if he can get neutral. Is he in neutral? Can you see it?
Oh, mate. You could have had a nightmare like me, so you're all right. Did you feel it under brake, or was it all right for you?
It was like it was earlier, so...
What, fine?
No,
Ah.
I've made the process off.
What, on the brake?
Yeah, it's not the best.
Oh, well, look, it's good effort that, mate. Well, it really was.
Yeah.
So that put us right on the edge of top 20. I knew I had to get in and do a big lap to get our place in the Super Bowl shootout, because that had been our objective the whole week, to get to Super Bowl and then we'll take it from there.
Barney! Oh mate, this is horrible. You biter!
I pushed hard. Unfortunately got some track limits penalties, so I lost my best laps, which were, you know, super competitive. We would have actually been fourth in the session had I not have lost my best lap time. The first one in turn 3, I was like, yeah, miles off. Yeah, I was like, no, I just tried to go a bit too quick.
Just test the water, right?
Well, I just went through there, like, because I think been a bit weak on my first lap, like every other time. So I'm like, right, I'm gonna commit to it, and then I just went through like, ooh, this understeers a bit. And then, yeah, the others, like, there was nowhere that I was like, yeah, I was off there. Nevertheless, we still made it through into the Super Bowl session, which was the important thing in the goal for us, and showed great speed throughout. So we were quietly confident, although the result page didn't show that story. Yeah, so Super Bowls are quite special sessions, to be honest. You've got there as a team effort. All three of us have played our part, but at that moment in time, you know how they work it, so you're out on track on your own, no other cars on track with you. You have all the eyes of the world pretty much watching your car do your Super Bowl laps. It's very easy to get caught up in the moment and succumb to that pressure.
For the drivers, this is an extremely important part of the weekend. You know, like, this is what they prepare for, this is why they're so fit and focused and bore through data as much as they do. They want to go out there for their teams and their manufacturers and show what they can do. It's the 20 best GT drivers in the world going out and competing for pole position.
Go on, Barney.
It was a challenge that I really thrived on, and we were the biggest winners out of Super Pole. We moved from 19th from our qualifying spot all the way up to 6th and onto the 3rd row of the grid for the biggest race of the year. So yeah, that was great. You know, I was super happy with the team. The car was great. I was really at one with it and could push it super hard and was so over the moon with the end result.
Well done, bruv.
Thanks, man.
Have a go tomorrow now, boys. See what we got. Bring your A game, Wilco.
Mate, I'm ready for it. Don't worry about me.
With a 24-hour race being such a big event, we actually get to the grid quite early, so we probably start that whole procedure 45 minutes before the green flag drops. I'd say that I'm an individual who's quite good at managing pressure and stress, but when you're on the grid for the start of the biggest GT3 race of the year, it always creeps back in and you find yourself getting a little bit nervous. I don't think we'd be human if we couldn't feel that emotion. So to be honest, at the point where the mechanic shuts the door and I start the engine, it's a relief because all the build-up, all the suspense is about to end and I'm about to do what I do best, which is drive a racing car as fast as I can for 24 hours. It's all the stuff before that that's the hardest stuff to manage. Like, you're on the grid with all the fans, everyone's asking you, are you okay, you're nervous, like, you don't want any of it. You just want to be in the car on your own, in your own personal space, ready to have it.
Radio check, 1, 2, radio check.
Radio check, landing, step in, landing clear. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
The start of the race at Spa is just quite a unique thing. It's the biggest GT3 race in the world every year. The primary goal is to make sure you survive the first lap, just make sure you get around and you're in the race for the remaining 23 hours, 55 minutes to make sure you're there to live to fight another day. At the same time, if there's an opportunity there to be had to move up a position, you take it, which is exactly what I did. Start to 6th, end of the first lap in 5th. So it's always good to make progress right out of the blocks, and then there's the full course yellow for the incident at Rouge. You know, we had another sort of 20 minutes of dry running after that lengthy full course yellow, where we restarted in 5th. I moved up into 4th before the rain came, and the rain fell very hard.
Ben, track is declared wet, so rain light on please, rain light on.
The first lap we were on slick tyres, monsoon weather conditions, it's got to get this thing back to the pits, can't throw it off.
Tyres to box, 7-11.
Switched to wets. Lost the position again, back into 4th, which was slightly frustrating.
Really struggling with the front grip.
It was really hard work. The car had no grip. Once I settled down a little bit, looked at the tyre pressures and they were super low, and I was, at that moment in time, I got the stress and the heat of the moment got a little bit the better of me, and I was straight on the radio to my engineer, like, Nathan, well, what's these tyre pressures? You know, we know we should be higher than that.
Hey, mate, what are these tyre pressures about? I just looked on the dash. What?
He just reassured me. He's like, Ben, don't worry. They're like that for a reason. You'll be thanking me later. And
Rain will stop and they will dry up before the end of the stint. This is the pressures we need.
Sure enough, as the conditions bettered and it dried out, I was able to take the car up into P2, hand it over to Rob in that position. You know, I was proud of that. I'd been able to progress forward in varying conditions. So yeah, it was satisfying, but at the same time I knew there was a lot of work left to do, and it was only very early into the race.
Yeah, good. It was hard at first, but the pressures were just
really low. They were like 1.4 because I was struggling like mad. I'm like, oh, we're not great in the wet. And I always drive with it on a different page so I don't chase the delta. And I was like, just click to the pressures. I was like, oh, that'd be why. But obviously it worked out like when it dried up. So Rob was in second for his stint, and then he actually had a minor incident with the Inception McLaren. We got a bit tangled up with it, dropped from second to fourth. Rob boxed from fourth position. I got back into the car for my second stint of the race. I was in fourth, I was battling with the BMW, then unfortunately we got the drive-through penalty for the track limits violations.
Drive-through penalty to car 107 and 56 for disrespecting track limits. 107, 56, drive-through penalty.
So track limits basically is the fine edges of the track, which you'll see every racetrack in the world has two white lines all the way around the outside of it. And the rule is that you have to have at least one tyre in contact with that white line at any given moment or within it. Unfortunately in the race we went over those a few too many times and incurred a drive-through penalty for it, where you just have to come in the pit lane, drive at 50 kilometres an hour for the duration of the pit lane, which is 70 seconds. I think you lose about 40 seconds against a competitor who's flat out. A little bit annoying when you have to do those. Yeah, that kind of fueled me a lot to try and make up the ground that we'd lost. Got in the car in fourth after Rob, dropped back to ninth after the penalty, and drove the car back to fourth on genuine pace. So although it was a shame, it was great to see that we had such a raceable and fast car.
6 hours into the race, we had a great start, then drove away from the field, got us well up into the top 6. An unfortunate drive-through penalty, but they've done a good job recovering from that. Ollie's in the car now for his first stint, and we're knocking on the door of the top 6 again.
Handed over to Ollie, and then that's kind of, as we went into the night, that's where it started to fall a little bit wrong, and we got quite unlucky with the timing of the full course yellows. You know, it always seemed to be that we would pit and then 30 seconds after there'd be a full course yellow. And what that basically means is that all the competitors on the track can drive around at 80 kilometres an hour and they can pit under that. Whereas we were serving our pit stop and everyone else is going flat out, so they're gaining a lot of time. Whereas we were on the track crawling around at 80 kilometres an hour whilst they were in the pit lane. So, we're not making half as much ground up on them as what they were on us. So instantly, I think you lose around 50, 60 seconds. And we had 3 of those fall pretty much consecutively through the night. And then that's when we dropped a lap down. And to be a lap down is 2 minutes 20, which is a massive amount to make back up.
Well done, Ben.
Thanks, man.
Keep that pace up, we'll be all right.
Let's get you out of this.
Yeah. As drivers, we probably get the easiest end of, well, not the easiest end of the stick, but we're certainly the only people who can actually get a bit of sleep during the race, because whilst we're out of the car relaxing, our teammates are doing the job. Whereas if you're one of the engineers or the mechanics, you've got to be there and ready at any given moment for the weather to change, so you can do a pit stop, or the engineer, if there's an issue, they've always got to be on it.
You're starting to get tired? You're always tired. Yeah, I understand. No, we're fine, we're fine. It's normally about 5 in the morning when the sun comes up.
It's amazing what adrenaline can do for the human body when you're a bit tired and keeps you all in check and at 100%.
I couldn't do that job. Not for 24 hours. I mean, this is cool because you sit down, you go to a pit stop, come in, have a coffee and a cigarette. Engineers, different levels. Yeah, just sit there. Great.
Brain 100%, 24 hours.
Yeah, that's out.
You won't sleep?
Can't sleep.
Yeah, for an engineer, it's very tough. We have to keep concentration. There's full course yellows, there's things with the strategy that can happen. We're constantly monitoring the car's pressures and temperatures and the tyre performance in particular. And you have to try and maintain that concentration for 24 hours.
But at the same time, when you finish them with a good result, there's nothing more rewarding, and that's why you do them and why we keep coming back, because it is the ultimate challenge for any endurance car. So when I finish at that 3 or 4 o'clock, for me it's then the next stint that's the toughest. You wake up, you're in the daytime, it's like 9 AM in the morning, but you've normally done that on the back of 8 hours sleep. Whereas at this moment in time, we've had 1 or 2 hours sleep and we're getting up to go and drive a race car flat out around Spa. Yeah, for me that's the most challenging one, that the sun's back out, so your eyes are sore. you're tired, and you know full well you've got to keep going until 4:30 in the afternoon. You've still got a good 10 hours to go, so that's the most challenging part of it for me.
Yeah, you know, like, I don't really know how to describe it. It's like, you know, when you have to wake up at like 2 a.m. in the morning to catch one of those stupid early flights, you're just like, oh, can't quite figure out what time it is or what you're doing. That's kind of how I feel. You feel all this now, but the amazing thing is the car just comes down the pit lane. As soon as you see it and you go for the door handle, you just forget about it all and you just feel completely fine, like the adrenaline kicks in and away you go.
I jumped in actually just after Rob. Yeah, I immediately reported that I felt we were losing a little bit of bottom end of power. It was still running fine, we had great speed, we were still one of, if not the fastest cars out there, but it just didn't quite feel right, didn't feel as good as it had done up until that point. You know, you always get these kind of things. At the end of the day, the car's already been driven absolutely flat out, 100% for 13 hours, so it's absolutely normal. It's not going to feel quite as good as what it did. But then you kind of start thinking, okay, need to make sure we start managing this a little bit, just so we've got something there for the end, so we can fight 100% when we need to, when we're going for those last positions in the dying moments. At that moment in time, that's kind of when you know that it's going to be hard to fight and really give it your all to the end of the race, because you're fighting with one hand behind your back and you can't go to battle. Your race is certainly heavily compromised, but you know, you still do everything you can to make sure you get the car to the line in the best possible position. So I took over the car for the final 2 hours of the stint, which is normally, you know, a very exciting time. You're going to bring the car home, you're going to fight for the end for the result, but unfortunately I already knew that we were suffering with like a 2 second, 1 second per lap loss of performance, which is extremely frustrating, because you know that your chance to really battle and fight it out to the end is gone, and it's suddenly much more about actually finishing. So you know, that's tough to accept. We're still in a good place, we were looking pretty safe for ninth, and we're all, you know, quite happy to settle for a top 10 result at what is the biggest GT3 race in the world. But then with about 40 minutes of the race left, we had the huge downpour of rain, like absolute monsoon. Jota did a great job of calling it at the perfect moment, because we were in on the slicks, put the wets on and the heavens just opened up. We couldn't have timed it any better, and suddenly we went from being in ninth and a lap behind the car in front of us for position. We were still in ninth, but it was right there, you know. 8th and 7th place were just a little bit down the road. I think there was 25 minutes of the race left. That was it, that's all my focus was on. I know it's easy to think, oh, you know, you've come so far, you should just settle for what you've got, but those positions there and so close, it really drives you to dig deep, and that's exactly what I did. Got through the cars in terrible conditions, you know. You're taking risks where there's so much spray, you literally can't see 50 metres in front of you, but you know that the car that you're fighting for position is just there, so you keep your foot pinned, and you're quite happy to take that extra risk, and it paid off for us. You know, there would have been no way that I would have been able to take that car from 9th to 7th without the rain, and just to get those couple of extra spots and to drive the car over the finish line at the end of the toughest 24-hour race of the year at Spa was such a special moment, to see all the guys hanging over the pit wall. All the emotion, none of them have slept. Each and every individual did an amazing job, and to be able to reward them by coming over that line, P7, it was just truly fantastic. Can't really put it into words, to be honest to you. Amazing to be able to reward everyone for their efforts, and special to be a part of.